Hello, everyone. This is the weekly review for AP World History from January 25th to January 29th. We continued our exploration of imperialism and its rationales, defining imperialism as a policy of extending a country's influence through diplomacy or military force. And we listed and talked about certain rationales, including economics and profit, political and military rationales, such as the European powers that were competing with one another to establish both political and military power and influence in other areas of the world, as well as cultural and racial rationales, with the Europeans figuring and thinking that their civilization was superior to the civilizations that they came into contact with. We read and unpacked a common lit poem by Rudyard Kipling. The poem invoked imperial philosophies and encouraged the United States to take up the white man's burden. This was essentially referencing the U.S. Takeover and control of the Philippines, and Kipling was saying that the United States must now engage in imperialist policies that the British had essentially engaged in for a century prior to. Our four-class focus was perseverance. That actually was a 2-week focus during the finals week when we had shorter classes and into this first week of the second semester. And we had an exit ticket on Friday. We talked about state expansion. The learning goal was that students would compare processes by which state power shifted in various parts of the world from 1750 to 1900. Excuse me. We came up with examples of, states with existing colonies strengthening their control of those colonies, like the British in India, how European states, as well as the U.S. and Japan, acquired territories in Asia and the Pacific, the United States and the Philippines and Hawaii, and Japan taking over regions of Korea and Manchuria. Many European states used warfare and diplomacy to expand their empires in Africa, like the British in South Africa and the Belgians in the Congo. And again, we went and listed examples that you were asked to provide. We also talked about indigenous responses to this state expansion, how internal and external factors influence the process of state building among the imperial powers. We talked about things such as economic and social changes, migration, colonial conflict, racism, and anti-colonial movements that were going on. We listed all those and then talked about whether or not they were internal or external factors and how they ended up influencing state building. We also talked about, and students were asked to explain how various environmental factors contributed to the development of the global economy. We had several different products or commodities that were exploited throughout the world. You had to independently research and find out about them, examples being cotton in Egypt, or the palm oil trade in West Africa, or diamonds, particularly in South Africa. We talked about economic imperialism and the causes of migration. Your goal was to explain how various environmental and economic factors contributed to the development of the global economy and varied patterns of migration, pushing people onto marginalized lands and reservations, particularly those indigenous people. The British looked to encourage the use of opium by the Chinese population to force them to buy it from the British. They ended up sort of cornering or monopolizing the market. As slavery went into decline, planters sought large numbers of laborers to replace those slaves. And we also talked about the technological innovations that sort of shrank the globe, if you will, through the advent of steamships and the railroads. What's going to be happening next as we continue to explore 1750 to 1900 and beyond? We'll be finishing up Unit 6. We're going to have an independent practice exam like the one that we had earlier, where everybody just takes it independently to see how they do. We're going to have another long essay question to work on. There'll also be a Pear Deck and Ed puzzle coming up this week, the Unit 6 exam as well, and then we'll be moving on to Unit 7 about global conflict from 1900 to the present. That's it for now. Take care.